Good evening. We'll call to order the City Commission for City of El Dorado, September 16, 2019. Should we have roll call, please?
Mayor Haynes.
Present.
Commissioner Guthrie.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
Commissioner Badway is absent this evening, and Commissioner Wilkinson.
Present.
Thank you. Next, we would have invocation. Pastor Debbie McClure with us. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's pray. Father, we want to give you praise and glory, and we thank you for this beautiful day. We pray now that you will be in this meeting, that you will give guidance and discernment in all that happens in our city. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. We have the Grandview Elementary Ambassadors Living Like Leaders team to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you come forth and lead us in that? Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hi, I am Lane.
Hi, I'm Boston.
My name is William. Hello, I'm Noah. Hi, I'm Madison.
All right, thank you. Well, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you to the Grandview Elementary all ambassadors living like leaders. Thanks for doing this. You're welcome to stay for the meeting, or you're welcome to go.
Well, I guess.
It's a short agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. No proclamations and personal appearances. Bless you. Bless you. Public comment. Anybody from the audience wish to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. Items in your packet for consent agenda that were sent out to everyone. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
Yes. Page 2, second line. Says Commissioner Matt Guthrie asked if the city had used this type of financing before. City manager stated that he was correct. I believe that you said that we had not used this before. Tiff?
We have not used TIF before.
Okay, I think that was. Okay, yeah, I'd not used that before. That's all I found.
Yeah, good catch. Thank you. Any other question or comment? None. I entertain a motion for a consent agenda as amended.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the consent agenda be approved as amended.
Second?
Okay. Move to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. On having old business, we'll move to new business, second quarter financial report.
City Commission, today we have the second quarter financial report for you all. The second quarter is past and the third quarter is almost over, so I apologize for that, but we now have a template that we're going to be using moving forward, and you'll get the third quarter report very soon after this one, but then we'll have it implemented where we'll get this well-oiled machine moving forward pretty easily from here on. So one thing that we do is we briefly talk about the commission priorities. I've given you all this presentation, so as we go through it, or I'm not going to cover it all, but if you have questions at any point, please feel free to interrupt. So community image, in large part, a lot of these have not been started due to some employment absences that we have. But that will be soon coming to a close, as our employee will be coming back to work here soon, and we'll be able to jumpstart a lot of these objectives and get some traction on particularly the items that are dealing with the CTC and placemaking and community branding. So we'll get that underway. The one thing, incidentally, that we do have, or we have had completion on, is the commission has provided direction to appoint members to that committee, and has provided just a general direction to that committee on what they need to be tasked with doing as we move forward. On Parks and Recreation, the large thing on this item is the implementation of the Parks Master Plan. The one thing to report on that is that staff has taken an inventory of all of the projects included in the master plan, and we've taken that to the board, and the board is beginning to discuss those items, and we will be putting together a prioritization of those for continuing discussion moving forward. And then the next item that dovetails into that is then funding. So we'll be continuing those conversations and hope to have a report to you very shortly. The tennis court complex is kind of one of the components of the master plan, and that project is nearly completed. As you all know, we did the ribbon cutting on that facility just the other day to a very large and very appreciative crowd. There's still some final work to be done, grass seed and sodding and some minor things like that, but the project for the most part is completed. Courts are in play, and we've had a lot of great action on them already. We've had a couple of tournaments, and I know that both teams are practicing up there as we speak. So good facility, and I know the public is very appreciative of having that completed. On a couple of these items, you'll see that there's staffing assessments. The comment that we have on all of these is that we've kind of presented some staffing options to you all as part of the budget process. But right now, at this point in time, those staffing options are not going to be moved forward because funding has not been approved at this time. So presently, they're kind of on hold. We've not shelved them entirely, but in order for us to add staffing, we're going to have some revenue to offset those expenses if they are to be increased. On the business growth side, it's good to report that the Main Street MOU has been completed. In fact, the commission approved that just maybe a few weeks ago. The Chamber MOU, we've started initial discussions with the Chamber Executive Director to figure out what a framework might look like for an MOU with the Chamber. So I anticipate that that'll be coming before you all, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or months. On the business park marketing plan, we brought a proposed land policy to you all, and that has been completed and approved. So we're starting to facilitate some of the marketing that will be associated with that. And as a result of that, we're also going to be developing and implementing marketing strategies that coincide with the land policy. And the status on that is we're awaiting the selection of a marketing firm by Inc. We've had some discussion on that, and so hopefully that'll be coming very soon as we get that completed. On the industrial park master plan side, the master plan has been presented, completed, and adopted, so that part's been checked off. Now it's the point in taking that information and using it. So the next step is identifying target industries and marketing strategies, which Inc. has been tasked with doing. They have presently assembled a task force that is currently conducting due diligence on targeted industries, and will be hopefully providing a report by the end of this year. And then once that's completed, as well as once we have our marketing firm selected, we will begin in earnest putting together the marketing plan. And what you see here is second quarter of 2021. That's not to say that anything won't be happening between now and then, but that full implementation of the marketing plan will be in full effect in the second quarter of 2021. It takes several months to develop the materials, and then another 18 months for full rollout, but during that time there will be a lot of work and activity that will be taking place. So the second quarter of 2020 represents the full implementation schedule for that initial rollout. On the public safety side, we are still short-staffed in the police department. The objective was to fill 2 of the 5 open full-time positions by the third quarter. Incidentally, we have 2 employment offers that have been extended, so that's very hopeful. The department currently, as I mentioned, has 5 open full-time employees or full-time equivalents, and so bringing in these 2 will put a pretty good dent in it, although we will still have 3 open positions. The fire department employment, as mentioned, we've presented some options to the commission, and we're kind of on hold until revenue can be identified. The police facility planning has been put on hold indefinitely until we can kind of move down to the future, get to a place where we can move forward with a plan for a facility. So we don't want to get too far ahead and plan for a facility and then not have the capital to do that. And then the equipment and technology strategic plan for both the police and fire departments will be part of the discussions for the upcoming budget process. Water sales, the lake development master plan. Eldorado Inc. staff has completed an inventory of the existing master plan that has been prepared with the United States Army Corps of Engineers as well as the State Wildlife and Parks Department from several decades ago. So we're taking an inventory of that, and we'll be presenting the results soon to determine these things were in the plan, these things have been completed, and these things maybe are things we need to think about or look at. And then once that's completed, we'll have a discussion about a master plan RFQ in discussions with our other stakeholders. On the wholesale water side, discussions are underway with the city of Augusta in terms of their wholesale contract. And so we hope to bring some framework to you all soon on that matter. And Holly Frontier wholesale contract is presently on hold as we are kind of in a holding pattern waiting for the results of the industrial water sales, which is actually the next item on here. So we are in the process of, we've completed phase 1 of a study to determine if we can provide industrial water to not only Holly Frontier, but also some water intensive industrial users. That first phase has been completed, and now we're awaiting kind of the results of Holly Frontier and determining whether or not they want to move forward with that, on whether or not we move forward with phase 2, as well as looking at the selection of a marketing firm to put together a full package on how we can utilize our industrial water in ways that can really attract and draw folks to our community using those assets. I'm not going to really touch on a whole lot of these capital projects. There might be a few of them that I'll kind of throw out there real quickly. Marmonton Road is currently in the, it's nearly completed as a matter of fact. This slide hasn't been updated, but the project was let and it's nearly completed. Scott has told me that it actually will be hopefully completed within the next couple of weeks. So if you haven't been out to Marmonton Road, you might check it out. It looks very nice. Oil Hill and Rocky Road, this project is also pretty much completed. There will be an item that will be brought to your all's attention for acceptance of some infrastructure in terms of easements and getting that all completed and closed out. Douglas Road is currently under design and will be let to bid sometime in the spring or summer of next year so that we can get that project constructed. And I realize this slide's not up to date, and I apologize for that. The runway resealing project is expected to commence this summer, as that project's been let and contracts have been signed, so we are just kind of waiting on the contractor to come out and get that project going. On the park side, the bike path solar lighting project, the site prep is completed. Installation was supposed to be started around April 19th, but we still have not received some of the solar lighting materials, and so that project is on hold until we get the final elements for those solar lights. Bike path phase 3, we have received BNSF approval, and that project will be let here as soon as KDOT gets their projects queued up and they let. So that is a KDOT project, so they will let the project to bid, they will administer it, and they will take care of the full 9 yards. And so they are basically getting all their projects queued up to let them. They usually let them all in one big process, and then we will make a check to KDOT, and they'll be off to the races and running. The ball field improvements, they have pretty much completed a lot of their stuff. They have actually received the shade structures, they've completed the dugout covers, and they have completed the concrete and sod work, so that's all been completed. The Riverview parking and the East Park shelters have been completed, and the East Park shelter will be starting in October. Grand Park improvements were kind of on hold as we await the completion of other park projects. Library Park improvements have been completed. Summit Park shelter has not been started, although there is a contractor that will be doing, he will be building one of the shelters, and we will also be roofing the 2 shelters that are in existence out there. So that project will be starting once he has schedule in his work to get over there and get that started. The tennis courts, as I mentioned, are nearly completed. You all will be looking at the legal, or the interlocal agreement. And then the batting cage space has been marked out, and the staff is looking to complete that project in this fall or early winter.
Were these all sales tax?
That's correct. These are all sales tax, excess sales tax projects that have been authorized.
Okay.
On the utility side, the Grant Park Sewer Project, if you'll recall, it was divided up into several phases as we worked on some sanitary sewer improvements through Grant Park. All of those projects have been completed. The Central and Gordy water main has been completed. Stone Addition sewer main extension, that has not been started yet. And the raw water clarification studies I mentioned, phase 1 has been completed, and we are waiting on the response from Holly Frontier before we commence phase 2. And then the wind turbine demolition, the notice to proceed has been issued to both GSA and Ethos, and so the removal of the blade turbines, the turbine blades, should commence shortly. So hopefully within the next week or so, you'll see some activity out there as Ethos will be removing the turbine blades first, and then once that's completed, the all metal recycling will be moving in, and they will be removing the rest of the tower. So that will be starting very soon, weather pending, of course. And now for the financial highlights. We're kind of changing the format of this a little bit, but I'm hoping it'll be a little more easy. It'll be easier to understand. It'll provide you some information that hopefully will be useful. So what we're going to do, we're going to show you key revenues, and so you don't have to think about all of the many revenues that we could receive. But we're going to show you the key revenues that we kind of look at as major indicators that we want to compare for performance to make sure that we're on track for where we budgeted and where we should be compared to the prior year. So what you're going to see on these slides is the blue looking bar chart is second quarter 2019, which will reflect year to date. So it includes first quarter and second quarter figures. And then the orange bar is the comparative second quarter year to date for 2018. So on the key revenues, what we want to look for is the blue bar bigger or taller than the orange bar? And in many of these, it's either bigger or taller than or very close to that orange bar, which is a good thing. So on our sales tax, as previously reported, we're about 3% over where we have been year to date last year. So performing very well, very strongly. Franchise fees are down slightly. There's not really a good explanation for that. They're down, and a lot of cities are seeing decreases in their franchise fees as people unplug their cable and move more to the internet base, or they unplug their phones and go more to cell phones. So that's happening. Court fines are right on par with where they were same time last year, as well as motor vehicle taxes for the general fund are about even with where they were. Hangar rentals at the airport are up quite substantially, about $5,000 over, so we're having a lot more rental activity at the airport, which is a good thing. And as a result of that and more activity at the airport, we are also having more airport fuel sales. So that those two slides right there just kind of demonstrate the amount of activity that we are having at the airport compared to last year this same time. Transit guest taxes are down slightly, although we do anticipate that will catch back up and surpass this time last year as we enter turnaround. Although with that said, there was a turnaround in the third or fourth quarter of last year as well. So hopefully in at least these upcoming months we'll catch up to where we were last year. And facility rentals for the Civic Center, Train Depot, and other facilities is approximately on par with where we were last year. So that's good as well. Water register fees as well as sewer register fees are approximately equal to where they were last year. So that's good considering we did increase those fees to generate some revenue for the utilities. So that was not done in second quarter of 18, it was done the year before that, so that's good. Raw water sales as well as domestic sales are down just slightly, and that can be explained in part because we've had a fairly wet year, so people haven't been watering their yards. The raw water sales is down. Our largest raw water user is Holly Frontier. Their operations have been pretty even, but we do sell a lot of raw water to Augusta as well. So if people aren't watering their yards here, they're probably not watering them in Augusta, and so that would show up in the raw water sales as well. Domestic sales I've kind of already talked about. Bulk sewer and domestic sewer is, bulk sewer is up compared to the year before, and domestic sewer is about even with where we were the year before, about $30,000 less than. So we continue to watch sewer to determine where that difference is. Incidentally, sewer sales, domestic sewer sales are based on averaging, and so if people used less water in the later months of last year, the sewer sales this year will be lower, which is demonstrated by this slide here. Domestic refuse is up slightly, and commercial refuse is about even. Industrial refuse is also about even. So all in all, our refuse is on par with where they would be. Domestic refuse, that can be attributed to the $1 fee increase that we had about that time last year. Recycling income, as you can see, it's down compared to 18, and that's indicative of the recycling discussion that we've been having the last couple of months. As you can see, even through the second quarter, comparatively, it's down, and we anticipate that number will continue to be lower than what it was a year ago as we continue to report third quarter and fourth quarter. Although a positive is our CNG fuel sales is up, although not much, $4,000. We have been making a lot of external fuel sales as some of these larger companies that have converted their fleet to CNG have been utilizing our station as a fuel up spot as part of their operations. So we're seeing that as part of our operations. So now what we're going to do real briefly is talk about some expenses. This is general fund expenses specifically. The green bar, the blue bar, whatever color you call that, is that bar shows what the budget was for that specific item in the general fund. The orange bar reflects where we are through the second quarter of 2019, and the yellow bar reflects where we are through the second quarter of 2018 for comparative purposes. You're only going to see two numbers on this slide. You're going to see the budgeted number, and you're going to see the year-to-date 19 number. And so kind of some guidance on how to read this. Generally, if the orange bar is less than or equal to about 50% of the blue bar, then we're pretty much good. We're pretty much where we need to be. If it's above that, then there'd be a question as to why. If we're about even or less than the yellow bar, we're probably where we should be, or it means we're saving some money somewhere, or we've reorganized some expenses. So in lieu of putting all three numbers on there, because the slide would get rather cluttered, I've put the budgeted number so you can kind of look at that, as well as the year-to-date 2019 number. And in most of these cases, the year-to-date 18 number is very close, so it wouldn't really make a whole lot of difference one way or the other. If I included it, it would just make the slide pretty cluttered. So on the admin side, what you're seeing there is we've removed some of the salaries out of there and distributed them to other funds, such as the data processing fund, as we reorganized that. So that's why we haven't spent 50% of that yet. But as you can see, we're still relatively close to the 50% mark. In many of these other cases, you'll see that the orange bar is slightly above the yellow bar, and in large part, that is reflective of the salaries and benefits being increased. As we give salary increases at the end of the year for performance, whether you get a 3% or a 2%, it increases your CAPERS contribution, and it increases 401k contributions, and increases a number of things. So as we look at those numbers, right now we're seeing that those are largely attributed to the salary and benefits increases associated with those numbers. In some cases, like for example, the police department, some of that number is also indicative of increased overtime expenses because we are short-staffed and we are having to work a little more overtime than we have in the past. So that generally explains the general fund and those expenses and how we look at those across the board. For our utilities, one thing you'll note on both water and sewer is that in the admin section, the budgeted number is quite significantly higher than what we've spent year to date. And the reason for that is that budgeted number includes our debt service payment that we've made. We've made one payment and we'll make another payment. And so that doesn't include that second payment. So when you look at that. It's not quite halfway because we do have a lump sum payment that we have to make. Generally, the second payment of the year is the larger of the two payments, and so it doesn't necessarily show up. It looks like we're way behind our budget, but it's because we haven't made those payments. And then also on the admin side, because we have reorganized some of our salaries, you do see that number being a little bit lower. On the treatment side of water, what you're seeing there is an increase about $40,000, and that was largely attributed to the cost of chemicals. While the cost of chemicals didn't go up $40,000, we buy them in lump, and it's really a timing issue when we run out and when we buy them. And so in this case, we had to buy them in the second quarter, and so we buy bulk supplies or bulk chemicals, and it just so happened to hit in the second quarter. So it looks like we've spent $40,000 more. In 18, we might have bought chemicals in the third or fourth quarter or first quarter, and so it doesn't necessarily reflect apples to apples. On the distribution side, that number is largely higher because, if you'll recall, we had several projects in both water and sewer that we had to finish at the end of the year or move into the beginning of the next year. And so things like Central and Gordy, that main that was replaced up and down that street, as well as the UTLX main that we did, we pushed some of those expenses into the following year, 2019, so we could make sure we had all of the expenses accounted for. The project was done in 18, but we paid for a lot of those out of the 19 budget, so that's why those numbers are higher. And you can see that as well on the sewer collection side, as that number is pretty high compared to the year-to-date 18 number. On the refuse side, again, those are largely attributed to salaries and benefits. The scale is a little bit different on this slide than it is on the others, so it does look like it's a substantial one, as well as some overtime expenses that we've had to incur due to refuse being a little shorthanded as well. And then finally, on the recycling side, you can see that the recycling expenses are down slightly, but again, that's a trend thing whenever we sell material versus when we get it actually hauled away, so that's more of a timing issue than anything else. On our miscellaneous funds, on the airport, you'll notice again a large amount there. Let me look at my note here. And that's because we have budgeted for that airport project, and that hasn't started yet, and so we'll be outlaying those dollars later in the year, and so that number will catch up to the actual budgeted amount. Major Street, this was one of the funds that we reorganized, and we took all of the public works expenses from the general fund and we moved those to the Major Street fund, and so it looks like we've spent a little bit more than we have, but that's again due to that salary reorganization that we approved as part of the budget. Stormwater is down, and that's again attributed to the change in salaries as we pulled, for one, my salary out of stormwater and put it into data processing. And then tourism is down, and you can see that, and that's because the commission changed the allocation to the Broncos from 20,000 to 10,000, and so that largely explains the difference from 18 to 19. So that's basically the 2019 second quarter financial report at this point in time. The 2019 third quarter will be coming soon. But this is hopefully more of a useful trend as we look at specific revenues and specific expenses, so you can kind of see how those compare and contrast. Any questions on any of that? In large part, most of our funds are performing the way we would anticipate them to. There's nothing that's overly concerning at this point, so things are looking pretty good.
Questions, David, on the financial report?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Move on to our next item on the agenda, which would be tennis court interlocal agreement. We had a chance to look at this Wednesday. Everybody should read through this again to make sure we're comfortable with it. questions or comments from the commission on the interlocal agreement?
Do I read this correctly, that the city is responsible for the scheduling and that the district will let you know when they want to schedule something?
That is correct. So we will maintain a master schedule for the facility. The district's responsibility is to inform us of when they're going to have practices, when they're going to have meets or tournaments. And then we will include that and incorporate that into the master schedule. So if folks want to reserve the facility or use the facility, the school district will obviously have first priority for those practices and meets.
Any other questions or comments? None, then I'd entertain a motion.
I have a question.
Yes.
Pursuant to KSA 12-2901, how am I supposed to say the remainder of that? At sequence?
A second.
Say that again? At sec? Okay, before I say it, what does it mean?
And those that follow,
And those that in, okay,
within that section.
I just wanted to know before I
It's kind of like
stumbled through something, made something illegal.
Good question.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the interlocal agreement, authorize the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement pursuant to KSA 12-2901 et sec with United School District 490, Butler County, Kansas, for the maintenance and use of Sam Bittner Tennis Complex.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further question or comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. I will say that having Mr. Bittner at the ribbon cutting was pretty special. He was obviously pretty moved by it. It was nice. Thanks for everyone who attended that, and it was a good evening. All right. Next on our agenda would be reports. Any from the city commission?
Parks and Rec does not meet till this coming Wednesday. That's basically all I have.
Okay. Greg?
And El Dorado Eat doesn't meet till this Thursday, so I have nothing to report from them.
Mine hasn't met either. But I wanted to talk about the lake development section. I was over, I spent a couple hours over with Linda Jolly today, 15 different topics. But that was a topic. And when are you thinking we're gonna hear about that, see that information?
I haven't actually met with Linda yet on it.
Okay.
So I'm anticipating that she's told me that they're done or nearly done with the inventory, so we'll go over that. In fact, she emailed me the other day about forming a lake committee and getting that kind of started, so I would anticipate that you all will get some kind of report on what's included in the master plan to date, pretty soon. So I
Okay.
would say that within the next month or so.
Okay. And then I talked to Scott about getting a list, and I just wanted to say this in front of everybody, it's getting the demo list, the permits for that, and I believe he was gonna give us more information on top of that he can already generate, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I'd requested that, because I'd received a lot of questions and requests of what's being torn down, what's going on. Not that I wanna get it, interfere with it, but I would just like to have that information available to me. Other than that, I think that's all I got.
I guess the only thing I would share is, today, in kind of a short notice deal, we had an opportunity to meet with Representative Ron Estes and the chamber. David joined us, and he was making a kind of a whirlwind trip while he's in town, and so we talked, and chamber shared what they were doing. We all shared or discussed in general workforce development, and Chamber Director Jordan Buxton shared about the ACT program that they're working on, and a lot of excitement around that. And then Representative Estes kind of talked a little bit about what was going on in Washington, which was, I don't know if it was a big surprise, but no, it was just a chance to meet with him, and it was good to have a sit-down session with him, myself, and let's see, present at the meeting, David, myself, Chamber Director Jordan, and Bill Young joined us, as well as, he was able to join us, as well as Lauren Jack, he was the director of, president of the chamber at the moment, but yeah, short notice deal. And that's all I have in terms of reports. What's been going on. He moves us to city manager report.
Well, the splash parks will be coming to the end of the season. They will be shutting those down on September 23rd. So if you haven't had enough splash park for the year, get down there and enjoy those before they get closed down for the season. The Holly Frontier turnaround is ramping up and will be hitting its peak here in the next couple of weeks. So again, we encourage people to just be mindful, particularly in the morning and evening, as we'll have more influx of traffic during those periods, particularly from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The El Dorado Police Department will be providing some traffic control assistance, as well as the Butler County Sheriff's Department down on Haverhill and around that area. So, but even so, people just need to be mindful of the fact that there will be more cars in town as that's taking place. Interestingly, the website backgroundchecks.org recently named El Dorado as the 12th safest city in Kansas. According to their website, though Kansas has a violent crime rate slightly above the national average, many of its cities are very safe places to live. In fact, 14 Kansas cities achieved a positive score on our safety index, indicating favorably low rates of violent and property crime. El Dorado received a safety index score of 0.09 as a result of the community's low crime rate. Area communities also ranked include Andover, Derby, McPherson, Emporia, Winfield, Hayes, Arc City, and Newton. So that was some good news to have from them. And then, as I mentioned, you should be seeing some activity around the wind turbine as they begin to mobilize and get prepared to remove the blade from that. And we still have some vacant positions. So if you know of anyone that's looking for a career, we have some really great opportunities for folks. We still have several police officer positions. We are looking for a public works maintenance worker and a public works equipment operator. We're looking for a public utilities maintenance worker and equipment operator. We're also looking for a sanitation lead. So if anyone knows of anyone that's looking for a career, we have great salaries, even better benefits. And so we'd encourage folks that want a good opportunity to call the city or reach out to us, and we'll see if we can't fit them in.
Thank you. Next on our agenda would be executive session, minus Commissioner Badway. We'll still convene, but have a short discussion. Without David, we'll have legal counsel join us, and I think probably 15 minutes is plenty. So that puts us at, can't see that, read that clock real well.
7:25.
Let's just say 7:30, make it 20.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recess into executive session pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KSA 75-4319B1 for the purposes of discussing the city manager's annual evaluation, and to reconvene the meeting at 7:30 p.m. in the City Commission room.
Second. Nice.
Okay. Moving in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. We will retire to executive session until 7:20. Thank you.